Welcome to Bobbi Jo's. Chastity here. So I want to show y'all how to make an almond flour crust so you can make pies. You're going to want some almond flour. You want the finely ground almond flour. You'll need some sort of granulated sweetener. I'm just using this allulose baking blend. You want cold butter. You want to chop this into cubes, but you want half of this. So you're wanting 1/4 cup of cold butter. And see, it'll show you on these sticks what 1/4 is. Now, you can get half sticks now that are already 1/4 cup. So just make sure it's 1/4 cup. You need some salt. You're going to need 1 to 2 tablespoons of cold water and plastic wrap. 1 1/4 cups of almond flour. So there's one. A little less. I've got measurements inside my measuring cup. I don't know if y'all can see those, but it's a little under. It's a half of a half, basically, is what 1/4 is. So I'm just doing a half of a half. All right. Okay, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of the sweetener. You do not have to add the sweetener if you want a more savory crust. I'm just going to do 1 teaspoon and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm putting salt in anything. Since I've been on this keto diet, I'm having to add salt back to everything. Okay, so you're just going to mix these dry ingredients together, get them blended. Then you want to cut up your stick of butter. And I always add a little cube of ice. We've got these tiny cubes. We've got huge cubes and tiny cubes. But I always add it to my water when I'm making pie crust so my water's ice cold. All right, so we got 1/4 cup. Just gonna cut it in half. Take this wrap off. Make sure you get it all. Sometimes it hides. And then we're just gonna cut this butter into cubes. Just like that. Let me go put the rest of this in the fridge, and then I just use this to wrap it back up. Put it in my butter dish so we can butter our cornbread we're going to have today. And it's keto cornbread. That recipe will be coming soon. So I have a pastry blender. You can use a fork if you don't have a pastry blender. You just want to get the butter blended in with the flour mixture. And it should be like crumbly. See how it's turning into like little crumbly looking? That's how it's supposed to be. Okay. Make sure you get all your butter that you got stuck to your pastry blender or your fork. Okay. So you want to add your water in 1 tablespoon at a time. So there's 1 tablespoon. Okay, I'm going to use my blending fork and I'm going to blend that water in. You want it where it'll stick together like a ball of dough. I can already tell we're going to need 2 tablespoons. Blend it. I'm going to get my hands down in here in just a second. I'm just trying to get the water all mixed in good. And if you get it too wet, too sticky, you just add a little more flour. But I think this is going to work. See? See how it all gathers up together? today is Thanksgiving, so I'm going to be making a chocolate pecan pie, a keto chocolate pecan pie with this crust. I'm going to go ahead and post this recipe today for my sister because she's making one too. I want her to see how you make the crust. But that's the ball of dough. Whew, I about knocked that clear off. That would have been a mess. I had to start all over. So you just want to wrap this in plastic wrap. And we're going to stick it in the fridge for 30 minutes. So we'll be back in 30 minutes. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. So preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And get a 9-inch pie plate. And you want to either oil it or butter it. I did avocado oil. I just brushed it all over it. Get your cold dough out of the fridge. And with your hands, you're going to press this down into the pie plate. Now, I still have my water here that I had left over because I got too much earlier. But you can use the water. If the dough's sticky, gets on your fingers, you can use the water on your fingers to keep it from sticking so much. You just dab your fingers in there. But all you're going to do is just press it into the pie plate. And it's going to be a little crumbly, but it'll all stick back together once you get it thinned out and worked. You can see those butter pieces in there. This is my Lodge cast iron pie plate. And typically you'd use a rolling pin and get your dough all nice and thin and then put it in your pie plate. But with these kind, you just got to kind of press it. It's kind of like a graham cracker crust where you have to press it down into the pie plate. You just have to work it to get it to go up the sides. And I'm not going to cut any of this out just so you can see how long it takes and everything I'm doing. Basically just thinning out the bottom and just trying to push some up the side. And like over here where there's not as much that needs, I kind of just push it over. See how there wasn't much over here to go up the side? Just kind of push it over. And I push this down over here. This feels more like a cookie dough than a pie crust. Now, I usually come up to this part to where it's all around, but I don't have enough. I'm just going to come up to the top edge. And you could just do the bottom if you want it to be a thicker crust. But I like it to come up the edges like this. See, I got it too thin right there, so there's a hole there. Got to fix that. Try and just get it all even all the way around. And it does not have to be perfect. If it was perfect, people would think you bought it at the bakery and you didn't make it yourself. The almond flour pie crust. Now, we want to poke holes in the bottom with the fork. As you can tell, I'm using a fork. I forgot to say with a fork. Okay, so now we're going to stick it in the oven. You want to make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees. You want to stick it in the oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. And the crust will be like a light golden brown. So we'll be back in about 15 minutes. So there's your almond flour pie crust. Let me look up the carbs in this. So 1 9-inch pie crust is 8 servings. Net carbs is 1.1 grams, 147 calories, 13.8 grams of fat, 3.3 grams of protein, 2.7 grams of carbs, and 1.6 grams of fiber. So 1.1 grams of net carbs per serving of pie crust. Now that's just the pie crust. That's not going to count what we're going to be putting in this pie crust. But that's just what I wanted to show y'all. I wanted to show y'all how to make the pie crust. And depending on what kind of pie you make, you're probably going to wait for the pie crust to cool before you put the fillings in. But I will post the chocolate pecan pie recipe later on. I just wanted to show my sister how to make this pie crust. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a very happy Thanksgiving and a blessed rest of your week.